Welcome to Out Loud. I'm your host, Erin Pash. We have a great show today. I'm going to interview a longtime friend of mine. Her name is Candy, and she is a dispatcher at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. You would not believe some of the crazy things that happen behind the scenes at an airport, and we're going to talk all about them, along with the high highs and the low lows of how dispatchers experience all the traumas that happen in the world and how it impacts their mental health, because after all, this show is all about mental health. We're going to review some awesome products in Erin's take, and we're going to talk about things like codependency and ADHD, which is, of course, really near and dear to my heart and dear Erin. Without further ado, let's do it. So today on Erin's Take, we have some cool products that we're going to review. The first one we're going to review, they're all like tiny little products today, so we're sitting up at the desk. The first product is from a company called Modern Vanilla. I'm going to read the back of the box because obviously you guys can't read it, it's too far away. But what it is it is a gender neutral kind of perfume. Okay. This one it's a hand blend with exotic essential oils. This high vibrational fragrance opens up to spicy green top notes of tagatees and
no one will know.
galangal root over a grounding base of vetiver, patchouli, arbor vitae, and fossilized amber, while aphrodisiacs, cardamom and jasmine sambac combine with animalic carrot seed as energy balancing middle notes to promote intuition, creativity, and love.
Oh.
That was a little bit hard to get through. I don't know all the words. I definitely don't know all the ingredients.
So if you put it on, someone will fall in love with you?
Or become creative and promote intuition. Okay, so we're gonna open this up and we're.
Is this the same one?
I don't know actually. Let's try them both.
Okay.
This is called Le Petit Skunk, which makes me kind of nervous. Skunk. Okay, so all right, here we go. Ooh,
okay.
It's a little roller ball. It smells like
college.
The worst hangover I've ever.
Like your college house.
That smells like pure gasoline.
Anyone have a chaser?
Oh God, this one's worse.
Is it the same?
I don't know. This is bad. This is really bad.
Can we say that? Maybe it's
but look
better
at
on.
Whoa. It just made some cloudy stuff in there when I shook it up. Let's shake them up. Shake them up. Maybe we're just getting the, you know, like when you have a mixed drink and they put the booze on at the end and all you can taste and smell is the booze. Let's mix it up.
Oh, this one has bubbles.
Well, we're shaking it up.
Shaking it everywhere.
That didn't help. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that this smells better than, remember when boozy hand sanitizer came out?
Yeah, we had that here.
But it does not smell like tequila.
It smells like Fireball.
No, it's not cinnamon. To me, it smells like a really strong, crappy vodka. However, what I can't attest to here is that when you put it on your body with all the essential oils, like does it mix with your own scents and pheromones to really bring out something? I'm gonna tell you this, I would rather smell this on somebody than a bad smell on somebody,
That's
like
fair.
BO, like body odor. I would choose this over that. This is not a fragrance for me.
Yeah.
With that said, they are an affiliate, and if you wanna try it, because you're just curious,
Yeah.
or maybe we got it wrong.
Maybe
we
it's
got it
our
wrong.
smell buds?
Olfactory senses?
Yeah,
I don't
whatever.
think so. I don't think so. And I'm curious to try maybe some other scents
Okay, yeah.
that don't have skunk in the title.
That is questionable marketing choice, but maybe it's supposed to be like that.
I don't know. It's not for us.
It's not for us. That's okay, though.
But it could be for somebody else. So if you want to try it, you can get 20% off. So check it out.
What's next?
Okay, what's next? I'm pretty jazzed about this. God, the smell is like, we're going to put these here.
It's all over the table, that's why.
I don't want to think about it. Okay, so the next products we have are from a company called Impulse and Modern. And yes, everyone when I walked into the studio today looked at my fingernails to see if they actually didn't look like they were 12-year-old boys' nails that were all chomped off in different directions. And I decided to paint them today, not knowing what these products were. So thanks, universe. So these I'm like super excited about. It's no secret that I have struggled with ADHD probably my entire life. I didn't start doing anything about it until I was an adult. But fidgets have become really popular, and it's not just for anxiety. Like, it can be for anybody who just needs that extra distraction. I read a really cool article about why you should bring your coloring pencils and why you should bring your like knitting stuff to conferences. Like, truly some people's brains absorb information and they can pay attention better when they have lots going on. So these rings are from Impulse Modern. They can be adjustable to any size. And they're actually really cute. Like, this one has little, they're not real diamonds, but they look like little diamonds. And look, it's like a little,
That's fun.
It is super fun. And they're cute. I actually really like this. Oh, wow. Look at that. My ring does not say the F word, it says rock. Everyone asks me that. This ring, this one is an eyeball. Oh. Let's see, what else do we have in here? So this one spins. It's cute little packaging, little gold. Ooh, this one has two. Oh my gosh, these are so cute.
Oh, cute.
I love this. This one is kind of like almost like tethered, braided, whatever, and it just kind of feels good in between your fingers. And then this one has little like little balls on it that you can just spin around. Let me see if they'll get stuck. Oh yeah, those will get stuck for sure. We'll try this one. Okay, maybe I gotta put them on this one. So these ones, you can get them in different sizes. Oh my gosh, and look at how cute they look. They look so cute. And then this one can go on this finger because it's adjustable. I'm like obsessed with these.
That's so awesome.
They're like super fashionable. They're super fun to play with. Instead of just for, like, have you ever sat there wearing a ring and you just sit and spin the ring?
I literally do it all day long.
These are so much better than that because when you sit, so you've only been wearing an engagement ring for a long time. I was married for, I don't know, 10 or 11 years, something like that. So I wore them for a long time. And if you just sit and spin those, you're gonna spin your skin raw. So really, it's also nice to know, or if you just wear other big rings, like if you sit and just spin them, right? Like any kind of rubbing on your skin, you'll get a boo boo. But these are great. Yeah, look at, I love this. Look at
that is so cute.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I'm gonna wear these.
It's like a small, cute fidget spinner for adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More subtle.
Subtle.
Okay, well, Impulse and Modern, we approve. I don't know yet, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. Handmade with love for you. I don't know what the ingredients are, so I'm that person, right? I'm like allergic to anything that's got nickel in it or fake, so we're gonna have to give it the couple-week test to see if it turns any of our appendages green. But for today, I'm wearing them.
Yeah, super cute.
Cute, love it.
Dear Erin, I was recently watching a TikTok that described symptoms of ADHD, and I think this is something I have been struggling with my whole life. The funny thing is that all the signs were there. Report cards, I was described as very bright and lovely to have in class, but spaces out, forgetful, procrastinates, needs to learn better time management, doesn't pay attention to detail. But now I am trying to figure out how to succeed in my professional career. What are your go-to suggestions to help me re-engage, focus, and succeed?
Okay, so this topic is like near and dear to my heart as I'm sitting here fidgeting with my bracelet as she's talking about ADHD. That's hard. You know, I'm gonna go like deep into some personal stuff. I learned at 30 years old that I had ADHD. You know, there were things that I didn't quite understand. And for women, ADHD can often look like anxiety, right? And I think it's really important for people to talk about that anxiety and ADHD are different things, but there's a lot of things in common. A lot of that can be like racing thoughts or feeling like you're distracted or like you can't concentrate. Whereas when you think about like, you know, even just the gender stuff with boys and girls as kids, like teachers would describe little boys as being like jumping out of their seats or they can't sit still and all that kind of stuff. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's two kinds of ADHD. There's inattentive and hyperactive, okay? So what is seen in ADHD typically is that hyperactivity.
Yeah.
But the inattentive type is usually felt internally. And it shows up in things like productivity. It shows up in our ability to concentrate. It shows up in test taking. It shows up, and I will never forget, in college, I was like, I should have aced this test. It was for adolescent psychology. It was like one of my favorite classes.
Same.
And at school, we were in a giant lecture hall, and the fan, like the exhaust fan, had like a kink in it, and it just was going tink, 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 tink. I almost like had a full-fledged panic attack, but it wasn't because I was anxious. It was because I couldn't focus on the test. All I could focus on was tink, tink, tink. And so what a lot of times people will see with ADHD ends up being the anxiety about, I can't get my work done, I can't do this, I can't do that, when really it's that underlying inattentiveness. And so I talk about all of this because I can really empathize with this person. And I'm going to tell you that ADHD is so different from other mental health diagnoses like depression and anxiety. We actually know what's going on in the brain when people can't concentrate. And there's a lot of medications available out there. At 30 years old, and after struggling for a long time in different academic settings or work settings, I finally, knowing that I should have gone all the time, I finally went and I saw a psychiatrist who, they first tried me on Adderall, and it just made me sleepy, which is actually, I've learned is how you determine if somebody has ADHD. Drugs that are normally stimulants, if you don't have it, it'll give you that energy, right, that people with ADHD might have. If you have ADHD and have that level of kind of hormone or neurotransmitter releasing too much of that in your brain, it will suppress it.
That makes sense.
Yep. And so I tried Adderall for like 30 days, and I was like, there's no like aha effect here. And she's like, okay, let's try the other class of stimulants, which is like Ritalin. I tried it, and it changed my life. It truly changed my life. If there are days where I cannot focus or concentrate, I will take one, and it gets me through that kind of low. And I think a lot of people don't talk about, there's stigma with medications.
Of course.
People don't talk about the other mental health symptoms you can have when you have ADHD, like anxiety and depression. That feeling of like worthlessness, like I can't even get a simple task done, right? And just kind of that associated stuff. It's really cool. You can also help ADHD with behavior. Go to therapy, do some of the self-care, do some of your work, and really take in like a thorough assessment of what things can you find in your life that bring you so much joy that no matter how distracted you are, it just piques your attention. The most beautiful thing about ADHD, especially in high-achieving people, which a lot of people would consider me a high-achieving, professional presence, is that it can also be a superpower. I have been able to achieve
you get so many things done in one day. It's insane.
I do, but what I've realized, like as an entrepreneur or working in a certain field that I love, like mental health, when I am able to focus or like surround myself with things that I love and have a lot of passion for, and I'm motivated to do it, nothing can stop me. And there's still those off days, right? Like I have the meds in case I need them, right? But I have found that through being able to take an assessment of what are the things that I need to be able to do to really keep my focus. What are the things that keep me engaged? And I'm not saying this is just like do what you want. I get through hard tasks. I can create policy and procedure manuals, especially if it's something where I'm like, I just feel like I have a really good idea about this, or I want to see this project through, and stuff like that. So bottom line is, we need to reduce stigma around ADHD, especially for women. You need to understand that there's a lot of other mental health stuff that piles on people who have ADHD, like depression, anxiety, panic disorders, social stuff. I mean, you name it, just because people are so afraid of that what if I can't mentality because I'm going to be so distracted. And there's things that are available to help. I highly suggest, if you are older and you've been struggling with this for a long time, go and talk to a doctor about it. It's so, like I said, it's so different than depression and anxiety meds. Like the effect of, research says that the effect of using stimulants for ADHD or certain medications is like over 70%, whereas, typical SSRIs or antidepressants is like 23 to 25%, right? Like they really do work. And then do therapy. Or Google, like I've Googled things of how to help with my ADHD and keep my focus, right? Like all of that stuff is helpful and it matters. So,
and I think just getting an answer sometimes can even help with how you handle something, because you at least can have a reason why these things feel so hard, and then you can do more about it. But sometimes people in therapy, they just like want an answer of what's going on so they don't feel as out of their mind as they have been. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Like you can go and get assessed.
yeah.
You can go through like a full ADHD assessment, and they can tell you if you have it or if you don't. And it's a good thing to rule out, because like 100%. I said, a lot of people will seek therapy because they're anxious, or like, how come all my relationships are failing, or all of these things. And what they end up uncovering is that there's some pretty significant underlying ADHD symptoms that are really quite fixable.
Totally.
So.
All right, last one for today. Dear Erin, I am hearing the word codependency thrown around all the time in my friend groups or on social media. What does that mean, and how do I know if my partner and I are codependent? At what point does it become a bad thing?
So I'm gonna just throw it out there that it's always a bad thing. Okay, codependency is this idea that one human being relies on another human being for like every facet of good or bad feeling in their life. Meaning that when I'm sad, it's your fault, or you have to be sad with me. When I'm happy, it's your fault, and you have to be happy with me. Like it's just this, it's kind of this constant, I have to have this person on the highs and lows with me in my life. And if they're not, it can cause a lot of problems. The word that people are looking for, which is a healthy word, is called mutual interdependence. Okay, a lot of people will be like, well, you should be codependent a little bit. Wrong, codependency is always bad. It's literally an unhealthy dependence on another human being for your emotional state, okay? Mutual interdependence, on the other hand, is that there's a mutual like connection, and that we depend on each other in an equal way. Meaning that sometimes you can provide me with some of my emotions and my emotional support, but other times I can get that from other people. I know I can depend on my partner, right, in ways where they'll be there to support me, and I can count on them and all that kind of stuff. But I also know that I'm still Erin, and that I don't need to rise and set with my partner's feelings or their emotional state. And it's weird because codependency can even show up in like hobbies and activities, and it just, human beings have to remain individuals in the context of all the relationships in their life. I went to this wedding a long time ago, well, maybe like 5 years ago, so I don't know, that feels like a long time for me, but maybe it's not that long. And it was a traditional, I don't know, is it a Catholic wedding where they do the unity candle?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I loved the symbolism that they had at this wedding. It was kind of like a New Age Catholic wedding. And what they had is they had two candles, right? The two individual candles. And instead of them lighting one together and then blowing their candles out, like they were no longer their own individual person. Like to me, that's like a symbolism of codependency. And maybe I'll get criticized for that, but like if you have to if you're getting married and you're lighting one candle and I'm lighting the other and then we're blowing them out, it's like, well, now we have to do everything together from here on out, all of our emotions, all of our feelings. But what I loved is they put the candles back, fully lit. And it kind of gives me the chills.
I just got the chill. I was just going to say that.
I know, because it's this idea of like, that is symbolic for mutual interdependence to me. Like we can come together, we can lean on each other, we can love each other, we can grow together. And I'm still Erin and you're still Zoe, and we get to have the things that make us unique, that made us fall in love in the first place, right? our love story too. So the answer is correct people when they're wrong. Codependency is never a healthy adaptive tool. It's what we call a maladaptive tool. It came out of actually addiction medicine, is where we kind of coined the term from, and it was this idea that when people started to get rid of, like come off of their drug of choice, let's say it be alcohol or whatever it is, they would find like a new addiction, and sometimes that would be people. Right, so those same highs and lows that people would have when they would be using substances, and they'd become like sober, and then they would have that involved in their relationship. And so it's you know, whether you call it like that dry drunk mentality or whatever, but that's really where it kind of came from. And back in the day when Al-Anon, which is a group for people who love somebody who has struggled with addiction, they kind of talked about, it kind of came out of these people who were talking in Al-Anon, and it maybe existed before that, but what really made it popular was like, I feel like now that my significant other is sober, I feel like I'm like these high highs and high lows, they're seeking them in our context of our relationship.
No, that makes sense.
And so that's where it came from. So it's a maladaptive thing, and what people are searching for is that mutual interdependence. I can count on you. I love you.
Yeah.
You can share your feelings. You're willing to sit in the tough stuff with me.
And I feel like when I've talked to my clients about this, I'm like, you can be so in love and happy in a relationship, and if that relationship ends, you still need to be yourself. You can't be less than yourself. And people think it's impossible to love someone that much and still be yourself, but like that's where that interdependence comes in. And I think that you just need to be able to, you can be sad. That's the other thing, right? If a relationship ends and you love someone so much, being really, really sad doesn't mean you were codependent on them, right?
100%.
People get confused about that. Like you can be madly in love with someone and still be true to yourself if the relationship ends. And I think it takes skills. I had to learn that skill. I think a lot of people do. And if you have friends who are in the field, they can be very supportive in helping you learn how to do that, because it's a lot of confidence within yourself too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people get in relationships because they're searching for, we talk about like trauma bonds.
Yeah.
Like they get into relationships or perceive them to be this like ultimate loyal thing, which they can be.
Right.
But in the process of that, you don't have to lose sight of
It shouldn't
yourself.
fill you up. It should add to your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So codependency is out, mutual interdependence is in. We could talk about this topic
Literally
forever,
for days. But
and I love it, and I love that it was asked. So.
right. And as always, if you have any questions, just send them down to the link below.
Today on Erin It Out, we have an awesome guest. Her name is Candy Capra, and she has spent 18 years working at the dispatch at the airport here in Minneapolis-St. Paul. Welcome, Candy.
Thanks, Erin.
So I want to hear about so many things, from like what happens at the airport to how it impacts your mental health and the mental health of your colleagues. So I kind of want to get started with, I think, things that people would really be curious about. So there's been a lot of stuff in the news lately, or there was. I mean, I know the mask mandate has lifted, but I want to hear just like right off the bat, there were all those videos of like flight attendants like knocking people out who were getting rowdy on airplanes. Like, does that really happen? And have you experienced that? And like, do they call dispatch? Like, tell me all about it.
So yes, for sure. During COVID and COVID times, there were people that felt super, super strongly about not having to wear a mask, to the point that they would just act a complete fool on the airplane because they thought that their not wearing a mask was more important than anyone else's comfort. And so yes, we would a lot of times get calls where what we would call it like an inbound disturbance or something like that. And we actually had to come up with a mask, like call type, like a complaint code for mask violations, because it was so prevalent. So yeah, they would call and say, hey, we have an aircraft coming in 30 minutes or whatever, and there's a man refusing to wear his mask. And yeah, people would be holding them down. People, like it would get to be a brawl. Or like kids not wearing their masks. Or I mean, people had problems with everyone.
So like, what's the outcome of that? Like, does the person get arrested?
I mean, unless they really like make bad decisions on top of that, usually not. So, if they assault someone or something like that, and it gets to be higher, a higher issue, yes, but no. Like, I don't remember any really like serious arrests, but honestly, daily, numerous times a day.
That is just, it's nuts to me. I travel quite a bit. I'm on airplanes a lot. And I am lucky enough, knock on wood, I'm going on one on Tuesday, that I haven't had to deal with anything like that. But I do hear from people who have to experience that. So I've just always been curious about, like, just even the interworkings and the mechanics of how you manage. Like, you see all the drug sniffing dogs and all this kind of stuff, but the dispatch team are the people who are taking the calls when like shit actually goes down, right?
Yes, for sure.
So tell me about like some of the craziest things that you're like, I can't believe this is happening at an airport.
Like you can't make this up,
like
right?
you can't make this stuff up.
So the one that sticks in my head was they had built the silver ramp pretty recently. It's the newest parking ramp out at the airport, and they had these huge companion care bathrooms, like larger than a normal companion care. So you could fit numerous people in these bathrooms. Well, at an airport, you have a lot of transient population. You have a lot of people that are just trying to get out of the cold or whatever. So people sleep in the bathrooms, whatever. Not uncommon, very common. But one day, there was a report of like suspicious noises coming out of the bathroom. Sounded like there was a lot of people in there. They didn't know what was going on.
Oh man.
Yeah, so what could possibly go wrong? The officers get there and open the door. Two people ran out, so they didn't really focus on those two at the time. We'll come back to that. They had, I shit you not, installed a stripper pole into this bathroom, screwed like power tools, screwed into the ceiling.
No.
Yes, installed.
In the silver ramp?
In the bathroom.
Oh, no.
There was numerous sex toys. It was clear that there was.
How many people were in there?
I want to say it was like 5 or something, 5 or 6, or
No
more than
way.
yeah. And so it was sex toys, lube, all sorts of awkwardness.
It's like a straight up orgy in the
Yeah,
bathroom.
straight up orgy in the bathroom. And I remember just thinking, you can't make this up. Like this is the
No.
stuff you cannot make up. Well, so fast forward a couple weeks later, we had a domestic out on like 34th Avenue, and they had not determined who these 2 people were. Well, so there's a domestic, and the guy is in the back of the squad car, and he says to the officer, like, if you lose something at the airport or have it taken away, what are the chances of getting it back?
Stop it.
Yeah, and he says, well, what did you lose? And he said, my stripper pole.
Stop it.
Yeah, and
How do
so
you-
they got arrested
So-
that day because they were not so
Well,
brilliant.
that's like
Yeah.
vandalism. That's
Yep.
like, I can't even imagine all the charges that is. So like you and your colleagues,
Yes.
you get calls like that. Are you guys like sitting there like right, if you don't laugh, you cry kind
Oh
of
my
thing?
gosh. I would say the conversations that go on in law enforcement, dispatch centers, fire, all the, like, if other people heard them, they would be like, oh my gosh, these people are heartless, like a-holes. Because you do. Like, if you don't make fun of it, it will affect you, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we would laugh at people's mishaps all the time. And yeah, if you don't talk about it, or at least if I didn't talk about it, then it would affect me. And so,
Yeah, you'd bottle up. I mean, I would say the same is pretty true about mental health professionals. There are sometimes we have those clients or those experiences where there's just nothing to laugh about. We take it home, we cry, which I'm sure, you know,
for sure.
that happens. But then there's those other things where it's like, I know I shouldn't laugh, but if I don't, like, I can't make it through my day.
Right.
I can't make it to the next person if I don't take a minute to just like process through, acknowledge that maybe, it wouldn't be funny if it happened to me, but it isn't me, right? Like, I
Right.
think there's a human experience in that. And so like shifting into a little bit of what it's like to be a dispatch person, I've worked with people in law enforcement,
Yep.
right? We have a huge law enforcement program here at Ellie. And so I've gotten a chance to talk to a lot of people who have worked in dispatch at police departments or at the county and all that. I have never in my wildest dreams imagined, I didn't even know that the airport had a dispatch department. I think you assume as an outsider that it's just like a security thing, but then you realize that this an airport's like a city that runs 24 hours a day. There's lots of stuff going on all the time, so tell me a little bit about like how you got into that field or how you like found it or what, surprised you about the job itself.
That's a common misconception about the airport. So TSA is like the security,
Yeah.
and that's different than the police department. So they have a full police fire department there at the airport. So it is. It's like
Yeah.
a little city. So my backstory: I went to college, have a degree in psychology and criminal justice, and I got to my senior year, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to be a cop. Shoot, what should I do? So I had applied at the time at Egan and the airport. And I was like, okay, I got to choose. I'm going to dispatch for a while. It'll just be a short thing until I figure out what I want to do. Well, I got an offer from both. I chose the airport because I thought it sounded cooler.
I mean, it does feel cool. Like, as a
did.
little kid, you're walking down a moving walkway if you're lucky enough to get to go on an airplane and you're like, I want to work at the airport. I don't even care if it's working at McDonald's at the airport.
Right.
The airport is just such a cool place.
And it was, honestly. So I started and I fell in love. And I loved helping people. And I loved being that calm voice in people's moment of crisis and knowing that I was making a difference. So I actually dispatched for 9 years before getting promoted to supervisor. And when I got promoted to supervisor, that was like this whole other bag of stressors that came with that. So now I had my mental health, my role, but also all these people
team.
underneath me that you had to be aware of, their mental health as well. And I actually spent a lot of time with the critical incident stress management team back in the day, participating in debriefings and diffusings and stuff. And dispatchers were often forgotten.
Yeah.
They are the first responder, but they were often left out of those debriefings because they would forget that maybe dispatchers would be affected too. And what you would create in your mind of those calls, I would argue, was sometimes worse than what people would actually see, because you didn't have that outcome. You would just have the screaming or the
Right, you'd have the chaos, you wouldn't be able to see the resolution.
Yes, and so that was really hard for people.
I bet. I think that's something that people don't really think about. Do you, like, with a community like the airport, do you get a chance to connect with the actual officers there? Like, do they ever go out of their way to give you the resolution or say, like, hey, thank you? Or, like, you sometimes hear, they thank the dispatcher who saved their life or talked them through something or something like that. Like, do you guys,
Yes.
do you ever get that follow-up?
100%. So
Okay.
the airport is small enough. It is a large department, but it's small enough, close-knit, where yes, you did get that resolution. But I will say other places, these huge county dispatch centers, you may not.
Yeah.
And so I think just recognizing and always remembering that the dispatcher is that first responder, and that it's important to make sure that they're okay too.
Yeah. So what kind of training? Like, I think about when I see, like, little kids, starting to cough, like maybe they're choking, right? You start to get that rise in your stomach, or for me, it's sometimes in my back, where it's like fight or flight.
Right.
Like, I'm going to lose it. What is the training? I mean, I imagine a lot of calls are like that in a dispatch center, where it's like, I'm nervous, I'm worried. What is the training like to help, like, calm that fire for you? Like, and
Yeah.
does it get better over time?
So I would say even after 18 years, there were still calls I would take where I was like, oh my gosh, I've never dealt with this before. So that is kind of part of the fun, or what keeps the job exciting, is that every day is different. But yes, like the training, at least at the airport and most metro area PSAPs, it's like 6 months. So there is really a lot of training that goes into it, because not everyone can do it. The multitasking, so many aspects of the job. But you ask about the, like, staying calm, or you are that person's beacon in their storm of craziness, and you need to
Yeah.
be calm. And if you're not, they just match that.
That
And
gives me
that's one thing,
yeah.
over the years, I was in charge of the training program for a long time, and I would hate when people would ma'am or sir people. Ma'am, 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 ma'am. Like, that's not helpful. Like, if
No.
someone's frantic,
Yeah.
you saying ma'am, 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 or sir, sir, sir over and over again, it's like, you need to know how to, like, wrangle people in and,
Yeah.
talk quieter, or,
It gives me the chills when you talk about the beacon and the storm. Like, it really is. Like, I mean, I think about really stressful situations. I mean, I've had to call 911 a couple of times. Luckily, it hasn't been because somebody I love is choking or having a heart attack, but, maybe there's a car accident, or somebody was driving drunk in front of me, and I called, dispatch, mostly because luckily it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, so there weren't a lot of cars on the road, but you could tell that they definitely shouldn't have been driving, right? And so it is that, like, alarming feeling. And I agree that, when I think about even therapists, like, we help people after the trauma. We sometimes don't even see people for, like, days, weeks, months, years, decades after
Right.
people have experienced trauma. And a lot of the trauma that people are experiencing, the first person that they're interacting with is somebody in dispatch. And that is just, I think it's a really powerful thing to think about. And so when you think about your 18 years, right, and how you learned a lot, yes, sometimes stuff's funny, sometimes stuff is hard. Can you name one of, like, your hardest moments? Like, what, or a call that you got that really just, like, crushed you, or you could not take it home with you, or anything like that?
Yeah, the one that has stuck with me the most over the years was a construction accident down in Fort Snelling State Park, where a crane had tipped over, and there was a person stuck inside, and there was nothing that my caller could do, and there was nothing that I could do to help. It was clear this person was going to die, and I remember, it actually was my trainee, and I remember just thinking, like, what do we do? What do you say? What do you say to someone that can't help someone? And
Yeah.
like that, that has stuck with me over the years, because I just, I don't know, you feel helpless.
I was literally about to say, I think helpless is probably one of the hardest feelings. When we talk about people who have depression, a lot of times they feel hopeless.
Yep.
And there's like an argument, what's worse, helplessness or hopelessness? And I don't know if I could pick, but I definitely know what it feels like to feel helpless. Like no matter what, I mean, we experience it with kids, we experience it with our friends, our family. Like, I just want to jump in and do this for you, or find a way. And yeah, I can't even imagine what that could have been like. And the empathy. You just can immediately put yourself in their position. Like, I can imagine that even just you talking about it, I'm putting myself in that construction worker's like boots, literally, and being like, I could just start bawling, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's fascinating. I don't think that people in dispatch get enough, I don't want to say credit, because I think when people think about it, they do, right? They do believe like that job feels impossible, and it definitely takes the right person. But it's not, you're not in the limelight in the same way as maybe other people in law enforcement and first responding is, right?
Right. Yep.
And so maybe they need to have a thank your dispatch person day,
Right.
right? Or something that just helps make people realize the weight of what you're doing. And we talk a lot about too, there's ways we can help on the macro system, right? Political change, or all of the things we can do on a big level. And I feel like what goes unnoticed is sometimes those microsystem change people, right? I consider us therapists, when we just get to work one-on-one with a person or a family, we might not be changing the world, but we're changing the world for that one family.
For sure.
And I think dispatchers, to me, feel the same, right? Like you're literally saving one person's life or impacting one person's family in such a big way. And it is those moments in the microsystem that impact, the big system at large too. So tell me a little bit about, because this job is really hard, and you've already just like I've literally been on the verge of tears, with just even the little instances you've shared. How have you managed that? Like, we talk a lot about burnout and self-care and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think helpers and healers are drawn to these professions, and we are still humans. Right? Like, and we still have our own feelings, and we are empaths, and we do carry it with us. So how have you been able to manage some of those challenges?
Well, I think that for me, for a really long time, I didn't realize how it affected me. So when I was younger and before I had kids, I feel like I was a little more carefree and like, oh, it doesn't matter or whatever. Everything's fine. I feel fine. Everything's great. Then as I got older and had my kids and stuff, I think I got even more like empathetic, or more like I don't even know how to describe it. I just feel like it affected me more. So the lack of sleep, the 12-hour shifts, I worked at 4 a.m., getting up at 2:30, never getting more than 4.5 or 5 hours of sleep on the days that I worked. It started to take its toll.
Yeah.
And I started to become someone that I didn't like. I would have these instances where my kids were being kids, and I was tired and I was crabby, and I was like yelling at them for being kids. And in that moment, it wasn't like I was there. It was like I was watching myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, you're being an asshole. Like, you are sucking right now as a parent, as I'm screaming at my kids. And afterwards, I would just cry, and I would like go in my room and cry, and my kids are like, it's okay. I'm like, it's not okay. Like, I'm yelling at you because I am overwhelmed.
Not taking care of myself.
Not taking care of myself. And I did that for years and years and years and years. And gosh, I don't regret my job or working and doing all that. I don't regret it. I just regret not acknowledging that I was in a place I didn't want to be.
Yeah. So did you decide at any moment to like go to therapy or anything?
I tried a few times, and I wish I would have given it more, because I think a lot of times with therapy, you go and you're like, blah, like here's everything, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the therapist, sometimes it's a good match and sometimes it's not.
Total.
Okay, so
Preaching to the preacher.
right? And so I went once and like blah, all the things, blah, 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 and realized afterwards that I'm like, I'm not feeling this person's vibe.
Yeah.
But I was so drained and exhausted from the blah that I couldn't do it
You
again.
didn't want to do it again.
Because I felt like it would be traumatic to do it again. And so I was like, okay, I'll try again later.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
what you're speaking to is actually, and not to get into the weeds with it, is like the biggest thing that research shows is so important. At Ellie, we do some things where we literally use a tool to match people on the first visit, because what you're describing is like therapy fatigue. If you go, you're so desperate to have that like cathartic release that you put it out there without even realizing that the person across from you is maybe not the right vibe, or not the person who you maybe trust the same way, or maybe they just don't get you the same way, can't converse the way that you need to converse with. And you can try it for a while and be like, well, I'd really love it if you would support me in this way or that way. And then you just kind of have to cut your losses and be like, this isn't the right fit. And it's no different than like when you find a friend or a romantic partner. Like, not everybody is the right fit. And so I'm glad that you had the self-awareness to at least try, but I do think, we could spend a whole nother episode talking about why it's so important that people take time in their wellness journey. I think one of the things, I just had to actually answer some questions for an upcoming article in a magazine, and they're like, what's the one thing people could do to help mental health, like the society, government, people? And my honest answer, like I sat on it for a while. It's not like it's a live TV or a show where I have to manufacture the answer. And I sat there and I was like, honestly, everybody needs to slow the F down, right? Like, we can't yes, we can fix a crisis in a moment, but we're not going to make long-term macro system intergenerational change in a second. And like, even nowadays, parents are calling therapy offices being like, you got to get my kid in right now, right away. And it's like, let's calm down, because you being anxious about your kid being anxious is not going to help anything. We all just need to slow down. We need to make sure people are getting the right fit so that the process works, right? Because if you just come in and blah, 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 and then you realize it's not the right fit, therapy is a process, right? It's I talk a little bit about like brain cells and all that kind of stuff. Like, think about, you're kind of big into fitness and stuff. Can you see results after one workout?
No.
Can you see them after 2?
No.
Can you see them after 5?
No.
No. 30 days.
Yeah.
You can see them if you work out every single day for 30 days. Well, that's our physical body, right? Emotional is the second thing. We make emotional process change like 6 to 18 months. So think about that, like just how our neurons and all of our cells develop, like that's how we make change. And so we do kind of need to like slow down, find the right fit. What I love about your story is that you had that really rich self-awareness. Like, people talk about like the first step is admitting you have a problem. Well, we call that self-awareness. Like, acknowledging that I'm not the mom I want to be. I'm maybe bringing this on in lots of different ways. And, to talk about your stuff too, like, it's not all just the job either, right? Like, sometimes, like, I know you made a recent job change.
Yes.
Right? And we were talking before we started talking on the show that you're like, well, it's not quite fulfilling me in the right way. So it's not always just the job too. And I think people are quick to blame the job, but it's like this whole multifactorial, like all the different things, right?
Mm-hmm. And the fact that I started doing it like right out of college, like 2 months out of college, like it was my identity.
Yeah.
And it was what I'm a dispatcher, I'm a dispatcher. And it's been hard for me to not say that, because I'm very passionate about it. And I'm very passionate about helping people and making a difference. And I didn't realize that my bucket isn't being filled the same way as it was, even though there was all these other stressors and things that were hard for me. There were so many things. I worked with amazing people, and that you're spending 12 hours with someone. It's longer than you spend with your spouse or with your kids. And you form these relationships. And I still reach out to these people all the time because it's like my family.
Are you ever like, you're not answering the phone? I guess I'm gonna have to go near the airport and call 911.
I seriously was like, oh, I'm close. Like, maybe I'll go see them. I mean, I just like, they're the coolest people. And I've worked with a lot of different people in the metro area over the years. There's a great group of dispatchers around here. And
the law enforcement first responder family, like that's a real thing, like that is such a powerful thing. And I'm really glad to see that there's an environment still that really places a priority on just caring about the people who they spend a lot of time with. And it's one of the most beautiful pieces about it. I'm really glad that you had this journey and had this experience. I'm really grateful that you shared it with me today and everyone else who's gonna watch the show. You get a moment though. Right? It's your magical moment. I want you to look into that camera right there in the middle, and I just want you to give like, what's one piece of advice, right? 30 seconds or less. What's one piece of advice you would either give somebody who's interacting with the dispatcher, something from your life, something that you've learned, and just share it kind of with everybody who's watching.
So as a dispatcher, I have to say, when you call 911, make sure that you tell them where you are, because that is the most important thing that a dispatcher needs to help you. So that's my dispatch PSA. But as a person and someone that saw myself changing and being someone I didn't want to be, listen to your body, listen to your heart, and don't let your life take a back seat to your career. Make sure that you're getting your bucket filled and also mentally okay, because it's not worth it and life is too short, and your family and your friends and all that is so important. And just make sure that you take care of yourself and recognize that you are important and probably the most important person.
I love that. Oh, I love that. That's so great. Well, thank you so much, Candy. This was great. We're going to just get off the air and start crying now because it's just so heartfelt and I love it. Oh. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No, it's Penguin Fin. She came, she put her arm on my shoulder, and she was like, So today was a fun one.
It was really fun.
I had a really good time. I think the takeaways for me from talking to Candy were that I just don't feel like people, like the media and everything, they give shout outs to law enforcement when they do good and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there'll be an occasional reel or TikTok on a dispatcher help somebody, but I don't think about them in my day-to-day life.
No.
I don't think about, I'm not worried I'm gonna get pulled over, or you know what I'm saying? So I feel like they're a super kind of under the radar part of the first responder law enforcement community. And when I think about that from the lens of a mental health professional, it really does, it kind of triggers some stuff for me. They go through a lot of trauma, they save a lot of people's lives, they make one wrong misstep and things could go kind of haywire in some of the things that they're called to. And that was just super duper impactful for me.
Yeah, or the thought of not even knowing how the whole thing ends if they the phone gets disconnected and then you just have to have it be an empty thought, that would, I can't imagine.
I know. I commend those folks, and I'm really glad we have them.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks, Candy. So we also got to review some pretty interesting products today. I absolutely love the rings.
Me too.
Love them. Those are going to be a staple of my daily wardrobe. I can't wait to just take them places. But I also think it's really important to talk about that we are our authentic selves.
Yeah.
And when we smelled Le Petit Skunk, it was less desirable than we had wanted. For us. The smell is a little bit more acidic. It's like alcohol. Yeah. I prefer, if I'm gonna look at perfumes, I love dainty, girly, floral notes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
With that said, we did put some on one of our producers or creative director, and we smelled them right before this segment. And it does open up a little bit nicer.
Yes.
Okay.
It was also a male, and I wonder if, and it is gender neutral. But I do wonder if we associate smells with certain people, even though I don't know why we do that, but I wonder if male, female.
Maybe, I don't know. I love the vibe behind it though. I love that it's gender neutral. I love that it's vegan. I love that it cares about the people that it's going to be on. And I think it's just important to remember that what might not be what I or you like, somebody else might. And so we encourage everybody to still go and try Le Petit Skunk for themselves, and definitely get yourself some fidget rings. And then our last thing, really, is we did Dear Erin today.
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah.
That it? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Good questions today, though.
Yeah, they were good questions. What I loved is that we actually got to talk about, I think, 2 issues that you and I are kind of passionate about.
Yeah.
Me, ADHD, and I know you love talking about relationships. I do too, right? I'm a marriage therapist through and through. And talking about codependency, and that, I love opportunities to teach people about, codependency is that buzzword that people hear all the time, but I love that we got to tell them what the right word is, or the healthy habits to be looking towards, which is mutual interdependence. So, well, that's it. It was a great show.
It's a great show. Goodbye.
Not again. So well, we're out.